It's time now to check your money with America's money maven, Vicki Brackens. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. Good morning, Vicki.
Hi, George. Good morning. How are you today?
And what a time it has been, right? We're in the midst. We're in the midst right now.
You know, you are amazing in how upbeat you are every week. And
I appreciate
thank
that.
you for that. Okay, I really do thank you for that. Because yes, we are in the midst. You know, so much so that when I got ready and started preparing for this week, one theme kept coming back. And I know that we have have dedicated this year to talking about education and execution. And this does relate to both education and execution. But I think it's more of this week an admission of the status that we find ourselves in. And so I've sort of dedicated this week's theme to answering the question, or at least asking the question. I shouldn't say answering. Where do we go from here?
You know, Vicki, can I just say something about it? It's interesting because, right, it's the same. I hope I'm not. Now, I don't know what you're going to say. But
I know.
Should I wait? Because when
no, go right ahead. Because we tend to, when we're free flowing, as they say, do much better. So go right ahead.
So when you say that, given that this is the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend, one of his very famous speeches was, "Where do we go from here? Chaos or community?"
Exactly.
Right?
Okay.
Right. That's where we are. And how appropriate is that question right now?
Exactly. Okay. And so I thank you, George, for bringing that full circle for everyone in case they did not know the quote, the full quote, chaos, which was from Dr. Martin Luther King. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? You know, and we've had lots of conversation this week around some of the things that have happened relative to Facebook, Twitter, and so forth, suspending access to the president and suspending access to many types of speech online. And I was taken aback by and encouraged by something that happened on Facebook this week, as far as I'm concerned, and that is, you know how Facebook every week brings back to you memories?
Yeah.
Things that you did this time last year.
Right.
The memory that they brought back for me this week was what I said last year, this time on this show. And I went, wow, okay, because to kind of mold end to end. And what we were talking about last year, this time on this show, was some of the findings that Fidelity had uncovered as far as what people were looking at for their New Year's resolutions.
Yes.
Okay, and the New Year's resolution show, we had some key components, but most of them stemmed around the fact that people were not necessarily looking at material things or losing weight or bigger and better relationships and trips and all of those types of things. They were looking at their finances. And I said, wow, okay, financial wellness was top of mind for everyone last year this time. And then I turn the page and I think about what's happened this week. And, you know, I cannot ignore it. There was an insurrection attempted there in Washington, D.C. We have the highest numbers that we have experienced throughout the pandemic occurring this week. We have the highest numbers of death that's taking place, not only in infection, but in death as far as the pandemic. But we also have, and I'm happy to see this, a groundswell of individuals who've made the decision that they need to go out and get the vaccine. In fact, it's very difficult for you to even find an appointment at this point in time. But we also had something happen that was underneath all of that was just mind-blowing for me, and that is the unemployment or loss of job numbers, how the economy is performing, went from a positive number, which we've had all throughout the summer up until this time period, to a negative number for the first time. That negative number, we were expecting an increase of about 60,000 jobs, and we got a decrease of around 140,000 jobs. And here's what's really impactful about that decrease. 100% of the jobs lost were lost to women.
I saw that. Right, right.
And I'm like, you turn your head kind of sideways, like, what? But because of the types of jobs that were lost, the fact that many women, because of the fact that we can't send kids to school, mothers are staying home to make sure that the children are safe. That the service industry in certain sectors is so dominated by women. 100% of the jobs lost were lost to women. Why is that? So, okay, Vicki, well, that's just 1 month. No, if we look throughout the pandemic job losses, there has always been a little bit of a skewing, but now it has tipped in total to a segment concentration in women. And what does that mean? It means that the wealth gap relative to the earnings for women is now getting wider. Obviously, we know that if the wealth gap gets wider between men and women, it also gets wider between African Americans and Latinx, okay, as far as the overall economy is concerned. And I'm saying to myself, where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here?
Because the crunch of the work that went into creating some level of parity, because women actually before the pandemic had tipped over to 52% or more of the earnings capacity. So if we are now retreating, what's it going to do to families? What's it going to do to communities for us to have this gap getting bigger and bigger and bigger? So here's where I came to it. I took out a dollar bill, and I hope everybody who's listening will do the same thing. I want you to take out a dollar bill.
Okay.
And I want you to turn over to the back where you see the word one, $8 where you see the word one. And right in the middle of that one, what do you read? It says, what does it say, George?
I don't know. I don't have a dollar in front of me.
It says, in God.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought it said, but I was like, okay. And I was like, am I missing something? I said, well, I always thought it said, in God we trust. Yes.
It says, in God we trust. This is not a religious program, but I am telling everyone at this point in time, you must reach back to your foundations. Okay, in God we trust. And we must realize that our entire systems are built on trust and honoring the legacies and honoring our traditions around our faith. Because the entire system is built on faith. I've said that before. But I want you to, because we need a foundation, and we need a foundation quickly.
Amen.
Okay, because the things that are transpiring right now are beyond. I've listened to a lot of experts, I'll say it that way, talk about what they see happening in the future. And I can tell you from the young ones to the seasoned ones, what we do not hear is that I know. What we hear is that we think it will be, but we have to acknowledge that the atmosphere and the ecosystem that we are in right now does not allow for the same type of assurance that we had in looking at models and predictions. So here's the things that I want to say, though, that for everyone, I've mentioned over and over and over and over and over again, liquidity. Not tell you how important, I can't emphasize enough how important liquidity is right now. But liquidity in two categories, and I've never broken it down this way, but it's important. There is currency liquidity and there is financial liquidity. Here's what I mean by currency liquidity. Real hard dollars, cash that you have on you.
Okay.
That you have available. If you look at disaster planning manuals and you look at manuals that talk about going through levels of stress or how businesses prepare for stressful times, they will break it down for you into actual hard currency that's available, usually somewhere around 1 to 2 weeks that you can put your hands on. That's why we have safes and things of that nature in a lot of businesses.
What's the second one?
And the second one is the liquidity that takes place that you have in your bank or your credit lines or things of that nature. But I want you to pay attention to your cash liquidity, your actual currency liquidity over the next month. Okay. Because if we have any types of disruptions, that's going to be what will save you, which would provide for you going to the grocery store, getting gas in the car, all of those types of things. All right, George, where do we go from here? Last thing I want to say here about where do we go from here? You must pay attention to what's happening around you diligently.
True.
At all times.
That's right. I say it, right? Like at all times.
Pay attention to what's happening around you diligently at all times. I am not a doomsayer kind of kid. You know me.
Right.
You've known me for years. I'm very much proactive, very much upbeat, very much optimistic. But today I'm telling you, I am diligently optimistic and telling you to pay attention to what's happening around you at all times, because that is what's going to, in God we trust, that is what's going to move us forward over the next 60, 90, 120 throughout this year, throughout our lives, but particularly in this time frame.
And we have to leave it right there.
George, thank you, because you know, you can see me getting wound up.
I see you. We got to leave it right there, give a phone number and all that stuff.
All right, so area code 315-930-4499. Feel free to reach out to us on as far as Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, 315-930-4499. I'll say right now, George, our plate is full. God bless you all.
And info at brackensfsn.com. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. Thank you, Vicki.
Thanks, George.